So over the last 8 weeks, I was training a conjugate style program. Now keep in mind, when I say conjugate, I do not mean the full uh, program that's traditionally labeled conjugate. I wasn't trying to accomplish, I wasn't using speed work, volume work, and maximum effort work like a traditional program. I was instead focusing on, I guess, the flashier part of it, which is this idea that you should change up your main movements week by week, or every 2 weeks in this case. So you can see my program here, and I'm going to freeze that right here. I'm going to freeze that. Let me see if I can get this right here. There we go. Bam, so you can look at that. The thing about this conjugate style training is it's very intense, and every week I went balls to the wall, almost did max reps for these things, maybe left one in the tank each time, and that was extremely intense. It was taxing on the body, and I was dead after every workout. So that was a factor about it I didn't predict, because the thing with this is that you change up your main movement types every other week. That means that your ability to move up in weight is going to skyrocket. Like I was jumping for, I gotta look at my, I think I threw it away. For something like a 2-board press, I believe I jumped 10 pounds. I know one of the bench press variations I jumped 15 pounds in 1 week. 15 pounds, that's insane. Because keep in mind, my body's not used to this. My body's not used to doing this type of work. So doing it again isn't improving my muscular system by 15 pounds. It's improving my ability to perform this movement, my nervous system by 15 pounds, of this specific movement. So that can also actually be a downside of this, is that you're not always training your muscular system with these movements. You're just training your body's ability to learn new movements, which really isn't that applicable for powerlifting, since there's only 3 of those movements that we're actually testing. And with that, I actually included some of that in my program. So traditionally people critique West Side type stuff is that it ignores a lot of the traditional powerlifting movements, which makes sense. You know, squat, bench, or deadlift, competition standard, almost at all. So what I tried to do is, as you can see up top, right up here, I before each main lift, I would do 3 sets of 6 for like a minute, 50-second or a 30-second rest, 50% of my 1 rep max. So what this would do is it would make me force me to do some work with the main lift, so I don't lose the skills. It's actually, I kept my ability to squat, deadlift, and bench throughout the program. In fact, I actually didn't use any deadlift variations because I just switched to sumo and I needed to improve that. So that was an interesting thing that I put in here, and I think it actually helped quite a bit. So the result from this, and also keep in mind, I keep forgetting these things, is with every workout, down here, that's the assistant movements for the day, those were all relatively the same. There were ones that I have been doing previously, so those variables were out of the equation. It was really just testing this chunk up here, how I changed my programs bi-weekly. So from this, I'll throw this away now. Hopefully I won't need it again. My bench, when I started, was 225 for 5 reps. I was trying to go for a 6-rep max, and everything I was doing was in 6s, but I failed it and I got 5. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go for 240. This is 8 weeks later, and I got it for 5. And I was pissed, and I was, you know what? I had that 6. I had that 6. So I went in 2 days later. I did it again. 5 reps and like 0.9 of a rep. I got it like up here, and it was just not moving. The guy, my spotter, used his fingers and helped me raise it up. It was like a 5-second bench too. It was just up here and slowly coming up. It was rough. It was hard. So in reality, I did raise it by 15 pounds, which is past my expectations. I thought I'd go maybe 10, maybe 12 pounds. So that's really good. It's not so far above what I was planning on that I will switch to it completely. Now you might be asking about my squat. I didn't test my squat. There was multiple variables involved in that decision, most of which is that I just didn't want to. This is kind of irresponsible on my part, because part of the experiment was to test to see if my squat improved. But I didn't feel like squatting at all, and I thought that my bench improving enough by that standard was good enough. And also keep in mind too, I didn't really consider this before, I hadn't been squatting at all for like the summertime, because the deadlift and bench press competition didn't have squat in it, so I didn't use that at all. So really I'd only been squatting for a month, maybe 2 months before this. That's not nearly enough time, I think, to justify the results that I got from this experiment. That's how I kind of look at it, because I didn't have a base foundation to measure my progress. I would just, whatever I got was whatever I got, and I wouldn't have anything to compare it to. However, though, the bench should go really well. And what I'm going to use with this information is I'm going to keep in mind that this style of programming is a good fallback. And if I ever get stuck on my bench, if I ever stall out, I can go back to that. The reason I don't want to do it entirely is I put a large value in the ability to perform the movement. I think my form can definitely be cleaned up some more with the bench and the squat and especially the deadlift. So I feel like doing all these variations, that's ignoring that, and it's ignoring the need for me to improve my form on those movements. And I think I can squeeze out 5, 10, 15 more pounds by improving that form, and that's something I need to nail down, and I won't be able to do that if I just do conjugate. So this is going to allow me to work on my form, as well as train the specific grinding and the maximum effort that I need for those specific lifts. Because at this stage, I don't have the skill and the nervous system capacity and adaptation to these specific movements, the squat, bench, and deadlift, to be able to do things like conjugate. I believe if you have been training for 5+ years and your total is above a certain extent, then yeah, you can really experiment with that. But I think most people, they should stick with the foundation, stick with the core lifts, and get their form down precise, and then they can try out these weird variation things. Because a lot of people like to hop around, they like to try out new ideas, but what ends up happening is their foundation, their core, what they actually perform in, is weak and is unstable. And they don't test it and strengthen it enough. They strengthen these other things, so freak accidents happen, there's imbalances, there's injuries. They don't prepare well enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue using a little bit more traditional style of programming and test it just benching, squat, and deadlifting, not doing this conjugate type programming.